Hey y'all, join me in Dakon's Bakehouse where I bring food from video games to life. Link in the description.
All right, y'all. I promised that one day I would provide an updated auto cattle farm, and here it is. Thank you so much to Icarus, who helped significantly in getting a nice, compact version of this farm put together with me. Let's get started on how to build this farm, shall we? So, for this build, you are going to need 4 drills, and you want it to be the regular drills, not the crude drills, because the crude drills do not do enough damage. You need a feeding tray, or if you're using bugs, you're going to want to use hardened sap instead of feeding tray. You'll need 3 hardened sap to replace 1 feeding tray. You need 5 robot arms, 12 blocks of any kind. I'm using Desert Temple, 5 electrical wire, 12 conveyor belts, a door of your choice, a double chest of your choice, and an electrical generator. You're also going to need at least 4 of a cattle of your choice, whichever ones you're using in this specific farm. So I'm going to start by just placing down my feeding tray and just place it anywhere where you've got enough room. Then I'm going to take my robot arms and I'm going to have them facing down toward the feeding tray. And I'm going to skip 1 tile and I'm going to place 3 directly above my feeding tray or my hardened sap, depending on whichever one I'm using. Next, we're going to take our electrical wire. I'm going to place my electrical wire down next to on the right-hand side of my robot arms. I'm going to go up 2 more for a total of 3 on the right, and then left 1. Then I skip 1 tile, and then I do 1 more right above the farthest left robot arm. Next, I'm going to place down my 4 drills. The first 2 are relatively straightforward. Put the first one facing down right here in this gap between your electrical wires. The next one you'll place also facing down right to the left of your farthest left electrical wire. Now we're going to turn our drills so that they're facing left. And the very first drill is going to go all the way on the right here, just above our robot arm that's the furthest to the right. The second drill is going to go 1 tile over, and it's going to go above the furthest robot arm to the left. This gives us a gap in the middle, as well as a gap right here, where both of our drills are connecting. Next, I'm going to go ahead and place down my walls. I'm going to come down to the lower right-hand corner, where the edge of my feeding tray is, or my hardened sap on the right. I'm going to place down my first wall, and then I'm just going to go up 4 more, completely covering up all of my electrical wire. Then I'm going to go left 1, covering up the next piece of electrical wire, skip, and then go and cover up my next piece of electrical wire. Then I'm going to come over and place 1 directly to the left of my drill here on the farthest left and go down 2 more. And then I'm going to skip 1 tile, go and place a block here, 1, and then place 1 more to the right. That should connect directly to the left-hand side of my feeding tray or my hardened sap. In the space that we have here, we are going to place our door. This is what will give us access to this whole thing when we're placing our moulin. If you want to, you can remove the door and replace it with a wall when all of this is over. But just in case things go wrong or you have to add more moulin or whatever cattle you're using to your farm in the future, then this at least gives you a good entry point to do so. Next, I'm going to take my conveyor belts and I'm going to turn it so that they are facing toward the right. I'm going to leave 1 space completely open on the farthest to the right, and I'm going to place my first conveyor belt down would be in the middle of the feeding tray. And again, it should be facing right so that anything that gets on it is forced over to the right. I'm going to place down 2 more so that everything here on the bottom keeps getting pushed all the way to the right. With my arrows still facing to the right, I'm going to come up above the farm and place another conveyor belt behind the drill to the furthest left. I'm going to continue to place conveyors all the way until I get 1 tile beyond the wall. Next, I'm going to turn my conveyor belt so that the arrow is facing down. and I'm going to place down 2 of the conveyor belts. That should leave 1 conveyor belt left. And then we're going to switch back over to our robot arms, and we're going to make sure that we turn the robot arm so that the arrow is facing to the left. Place the robot arm directly behind where the drill is so that the robot arm will be turning the loot over into this blank square right under where the conveyor belts stop. We'll take our next robot arm and turn it so that the arrow is facing up and place it diagonal from our last robot arm so that essentially anything else that drops into this spot will get picked up by this robot arm. Grab your double chest and turn it so that it is facing with the arrows down and place it underneath the robot arm that we just placed. Finally, we are going to take our electricity generator and we are going to place it right here in the little space that is left over between the 2 robot arms. Now everything in here is powered, and we now just have to prep the farm. If you're using hardened sap, it'll automatically generate bugs. But if you're using a feeding tray, you're going to need to fill it with some sort of vegetable or other crop that is being used and eaten by the animal you have down here, whether it's kelp or mushrooms or whatever you're using. I like to place my first cattle over here on the far right because it's a blank spot, and you have to use blank spots to place your cattle, which is then why I recommend that people stand in the door and place your cattle here in the top square. It'll eventually get pushed down to the right, and you'll be able to place your next cattle. And then that one will get pushed down to the right as well. And you can keep placing cattle until you've got as many as you are able to hold in there. I recommend that you place at least 4, if not upwards of 5 cattle, so that you can really get the farm going. Once you have all the cattle in there that you want, you're going to take your last conveyor belt and you're going to make sure the arrow is facing down. And then you are going to place that right here in the tile on the top. This will force most of the cattle and away from the drills so that only when they have bred enough and the area is overflowing will they be spawning and appearing in these top tiles up here, taking damage and getting destroyed. And then the meat will get fed all the way over from the conveyor belts over here and dumped into the double chest. On top of that, since they'll be well fed the whole time, all the milk that they generate, and if you're using the sheep, they'll generate wool or whatever cattle you have in here, whatever it's going to generate, that will all be grabbed by these robot arms and funneled over to the conveyor belts as well and brought into this double chest. It is kind of slow. It will take many, many hours to generate a lot of the stuff. It'll generate more of the well-fed products than it will meat. The marble meat is going to be a very, very slow, time-consuming process. If you want lots of marble meat, you're going to need to make a lot of these farms. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Please be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any more Core Keeper content. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay crazy, everybody.